Hey guys, Wolvie here. This is a special presentation for the City of Final Fantasy Opera Omnia Global for the 30th of January 2021. And you guys, I did hint at this a couple of times, maybe here and there, throughout the February calendar preview. This is the whole thing on Balthier's LD coming to Global first, and why not only was it not a good choice for Global, but also showcase certain evidence on the global end of the game where Fang or Zack would have been a better candidate. Now, I'm going to show off some other characters in this video to help with some evidence in the matter, in the sense of what they're getting to global later on this year, including certain characters I absolutely enjoyed using. Now, I'm going to have the Dissidia database website link in the description below, because some of the other characters I'm going to be bringing up in this video, you get the info on, certain aspects of what they get do, which helps out in certain aspects of this video. So, with that bit out of the way, the usual disclaimer applies. Any opinion in this video is my opinion and my opinion only. So, with that, where I'm going to be meeting you guys at is, with certain characters, I'm going to go look. We're going to be taking a look at Balthier first. We're going to be looking at Fang as well as Zack. And I do want to mention with Zack, he does, as far as I know, he still does not have his, I would say his, but a rework of any kind. And Fang does have a rework with her lost chapters, so it's one of those things where, you had to take certain things into account. So the only thing that, between the main three, Fang, Zack, and, Balthier, when it comes down to the global end of this thing, once comes February, Fang will be the only one who is still without her 8080 awakening. She, as far as I know, she does not have it on JP. There is a character debut on JP in February. It is Sid Reigns. That's a spoiler for Global. 13 is not done with their reps yet. Now, there could be some speculation, in sense of like the synergy for this event. If Fang is not on synergy for the Sid Reigns event, because there is history between the two. That's another spoiler, but that is from 13. Fang and Sid Reigns have a particular history between the two. So, if Fang's not on synergy with Sid Reigns, there could be, who knows, really. But either way, I'm gonna start this video, basically, going off of, the fact that we're gonna be looking at the three kits, Balthier, Fang, and Zack pre-Balthier LD. Go over, the basis of what they can do respectively. And then we're going to go into the other characters that supports a bit of the evidence as to why Balthier should not have gotten his LD first on Global. So with that, I'll pause the video and I'll be in the party thingamajig where you get to pick allies, whatever. So that's where I'll meet you all at. Okay, I am back. So the first person we're going to be looking into is like a three-way comparison is Balthier. We're going to go into, the skill set, what he can do. I was going to hit the equip button, just gave you like a little snippet of what can happen. So basically he has 16 uses of, skill 1, skill 2 put together. And I think, let me double check something real quick here. So the base for the additional ability is at 1. So let me double check something on my end. Make sure, okay. Okay, so we're going to go, we're going to do it like this. So, look, if you look at Balthier, sense of this kit, this is all pre-LD. So he has 8 uses of skill 1, 8 uses of skill 2, 2 of the additional abilities. So he has a grand total of 18 skill uses. Now, with the LD, it's going to be around 21 or 22. So that's pretty much what he has, to offer in the realm of the number of skill uses. So he has a good amount of longevity right then and there. Now, one of the things that Balthier is known for is that if there's somebody who is buffed, he can steal it for himself. Now, with the LD that's coming out, it's probably he gets more of that. Now, to me, that is a bit of overkill because, honestly, with the LD, it's like it's kind of another format of dispelling. There are already other units out there who could do the same thing, regardless if they're tied to an element or not. So that is a bit of a snapshot for Balthier. So I'm going to do some pausing here and there throughout the remainder of this video. So we're going to be looking at Zack first, then Fang. And I do want to mention here, Balthier, like Zack, is from the 50-50 era. Fang is from the 60-60 era. So just a little warning. So we're going to look at Zack next. So I'll be back. Now this is Zack from Final Fantasy VII. Crisis Core, the prequel. Now we're going to look at his skill set. Now, what we have here, we have 8, 6, and 2. So that's 8 in skill 1, 6 in skill 2, and 2 of the additional abilities. So the 8 plus 6 plus 2, that's 16. So again, he is still without his LD. And again, he does not have a rework of any kind. And again, this is to the best of my knowledge. Now, the thing here with Zack, granted, he does have the 80-80 awakening, which is something Balthier will also get with the LD. The problem here is with Zack is that he has no means to conserve skill uses unless you really know how to micromanage. And this is going to be a bit of a spoiler for the remainder part of this video, is that there are going to be a couple of other units who are considered the best tanks when it comes to future content instead of like the beyond the few months mark. So there are going to be a couple of units where it's like what they do will simply have Zack completely benched, in my personal opinion. But the thing is with Zack, he has his own thing, he has his skill, he has his uses, but you're looking at the right now versus beyond that. And beyond that is what's hurting Zack right now. Because, again, like I just said, there are a couple of units who completely have a benched at that point. And you have to look at a unit that's from 15, Gladio, I'm just going to call him that because it's a bit of a twister, when it comes to pronouncing things. But Gladio, he has some tanks benched as it is right now. So it's one of those things is where, okay, what do I do? How do I use this person in Lufenia content? That sort of thing. And Zack, again, he's good for the right now, but you're looking beyond the right now, he's going to get benched, and bad. So with that, I will meet you guys with the Fang, info. And this is Arabic Young Fang for Final Fantasy 13. Like I've been saying for parts of this video, she's the only one of the 3 who still is at 70-70 to this day. Now, again, on JP, it was announced that Cid Raines will be the new character for the JP roster. Now, again, this is some spoilers from 13. Fang and Cid Raines have a particular history together. I'm not going any further than that. Now, for JP, again, this is another spoiler, it's global, is that Cid Raines will be coming with his alternate costume right out of the gate. Now, some people were speculating that Cid Raines is going to be the 13 antagonist, but it's too soon to call that. Because Zidane, another spoiler, Zidane just got his burst weapon. It is with the plus variant. So, we don't know if Cid's going to be the 13 antagonist. I very highly doubt it because, again, you don't fight Cid Raines at the very end of the tale. With that being said, Fang does have a specific history with him. She knows him in ways that certain other people don't, outside of Snow. And the thing is, with synergy for Cid Raines' event, we don't know if Fang's going to be on there as synergy or not. It could be Snow. We simply do not know. But the thing is, there is some significance for Cid Raines as well as Fang and Snow in that regard. So with her kit, she does have 16 uses altogether. You have a 7-6-3 with the skill 1, skill 2, and additional ability respectively. But the thing is, with her additional ability, it only lasts 3 turns. Meaning that you constantly have to go into it in order to make the most of what she can do. Now, the thing here with Fang is that she has been requested by some in the player base. Now, for those of you who watched the global stream, around the time they revealed Ultimate Odin in the Ultimate Esper Trials, that was pretty much the biggest moment where people were asking Fang rework or Fang early LD, something along those lines, because she is beyond useless right now. I have her fully built up, as you can see here, and I can't even use her because even with micromanaging, she's going to be the one that you gotta carry. And that is extremely heartbreaking, because she is a favorite of mine. But the thing is, as I said, some people have been requesting her, so Balthier wasn't the only one. And for the developers to kind of ignore that, it's like you can't, it's like this is where some of the quote-unquote hate is going to be a bit more justified, because, and I'm just explaining this, I'm not defending the hate. So, the thing here is that, when this is what I've been noticing with this game, for as long as I've been playing it, you're talking about varying entries tend to get better treatment more than others. Now, where it was, so maybe some people may see this part as like I'm accusing, but unfortunately, there is some evidence where certain entries are getting more love more often than others. Now, if you look at Beatrix on my screen here, that Final Fantasy IX tends to get a lot of love. Now, the thing is with Fang's global debut, it was pushed back 2 weeks because of Beatrix. Now, granted, I love Beatrix, but I have to keep it real at the same time. Is that Beatrix is the reason why Fang was delayed a little bit, as well as Leon. Now, Leon, another spoiler for Global, he does get an 80/80 awakening. He does have an LD out on JP. So that's the thing right there, just a little FYI. You have certain entries where they typically get a little bit more love more often than the others. And for any business, though, one of the worst things you could do is play favorites. Because outside of the Beatrix being a global first character, you also have Kuja having his global debut. Let me grab it on my screen here if I can grab it really quickly. I think I passed it up. Did I pass it up? I don't think I did. You see me doing this live, folks. Did I? I'm looking. Here we go. Now, the whole thing with the global debut, Kuja actually showed up earlier than anticipated, unfortunately. And as a result, Maria's global debut got kind of delayed. So this is example number 2 of the Final Fantasy IX, getting the treatment more so than the rest. Now, Vivi does have his LD on global. However, that was the correct call. Because you're looking at somebody who is a member of the Cursed Six. And Vivi being part of that group, he had little use before the LD. So it's one of those things is where you look at a character like Vivi as opposed to somebody like Balthier. Vivi actually had the justification to get the LD first. Balthier, not so much. Because Balthier has the skill uses, as well as him not being part of the Cursed Six. It's like, Balthier can be used. Where Vivi, you actually have to rely on certain passives in order to have him at his best. So, like I said, that's the thing. You have already at least 3 instances where Final Fantasy IX got the treatment early, although only one of them was the correct call, and that being Vivi's LD coming to global early. Now, it is about to come out on JP, so that's that on that. So that's a bit of a spoil. So Vivi's LD will be coming back soon. By soon later on this year for global. So now what I'm going to be doing is showcasing a couple of units where, in all honesty, these units will be benching Zack, and there are reasons why. The first one you are actually seeing on the screen, and it is none other than Celestia Final Fantasy VI. Now, here's the thing, and I'm not referring, this is the beyond the right now. Now, with Celeste, yeah, she does have her 8080 awakening, which came with the first 3 wings of her character enhancement boards. Now, on global, we just got the LD extension. Now, it's going to be around April. They may push it to the end of March, where Celeste gets a second rework. The second rework comes with her LD. Now, the person that she's with that gets their first weapon is getting what some people refer to as a minor rework. The minor rework that Celeste gets her major rework with is Emperor for Final Fantasy II. Now, with Celeste's second rework, and it's a big one, she can be used in way more content than ever before. And because of her secondary rework, alongside her LD and the LD extension to her character enhancement boards, she is going to be one of the units where a game goes into a certain direction. She's going to be benching a decent amount of tanks because of what she can do. And one of the things she can do with her secondary rework is provide a truly sustainable way to enchant the ice element, which is what she's associated with, to the entire party. Meaning that it's more sustainable than Onion Knight and the way he currently does it. That's one of those things she is known for with her secondary rework. Now, another thing she has going for her regarding the secondary rework is that not only, she can provide sustainable means to enchant the ice element, she can also have more reliable means and more quantitative means to heal the party's HP. So it's not just herself, it's also to the entire party. That's 2 key aspects of her secondary rework that puts her over the top. And in ways, there are certain ways where she actually outdoes Gladio. So this is one of those 2 units. And again, you have to wait till the game goes into a certain direction. But again, Celeste's hold on a second. The whole thing with Celeste's second rework, it's big. And it's like, she's one of the units where the JP development team went all out for her. And she is one of those units where it's like people have been sleeping on. That time is going to be up relatively soon because the second rework for global, and this is from the forecast, is slated to come around early April, maybe the end of March. And she's going to be surprising people in the best way possible. Now I'm going to do another pause for this video and showcase one other unit that could probably bench Zack in the future. So I'll be back. Here is the other unit that is slated to topple Zack in the future. That is Galuf from Final Fantasy V. Now, he does have an 8080 awakening coming in the future. He does have an LD. Now, the only thing I don't know as of now is about the secondary rework. Now, the whole thing, what I do understand with the Galuf in the sense of the future 8080 Awakening and LD, he has his own methods, that has him joining Celeste and outdoing a lot of tanks when that time comes. Now, the thing is with Galuf, what happens for the 8080 Awakening, he has a similar thing with Arden Final Fantasy 15. Now, the reason I kind of do this with those two characters is because you can get Galuf at 0 HP and he can still be kicking ass. And which is how Arden works. So it's one of those things, it's like you have to keep certain things in mind. And this is when the game goes into a certain direction. Because both Celeste and Galuf will be outdoing a lot of tanks, including and especially Zap. So with that bit out of the way, like I said, this is kind of like the reason why Balthier was not that good of a pick. Now, another entry I want to get into where it seems to be playing favorites is Final Fantasy 15. Now, it is noted history that that 15 is actually the incomplete game of the main series. Now, look at Final Fantasy 1 through 15. 15 is the incomplete, despite what people say. Now, the reason why I know it's incomplete is because as of late 2018, there was a $33 million USD loss by Square Enix surrounding the studio that's responsible for Final Fantasy 15, and one individual in particular left. It's Tabata. Now, what happened as a result of the $33 million loss involving Final Fantasy 15 was that 75% of the planned downloadable content, which is Episode Noctis, Episode Lunafreya, and Episode Aranea, those three got canned instead of their downloadable content. Now, what survived was Episode Arden. Now, what also happened outside of that was the stop of the PC support. In addition, the Season 2 content, Dawn in the Future, that went from being in the game to a novella, which is why it's rendered as the incomplete. Now, outside of Final Fantasy 15, as a result of that, Final Fantasy Type 0 had the sequel canned as a result of a $33 million loss. Now, again, I could be seen as talking out of my ass, but it is quite notable because at the time this happened, a lot of people were talking about it. And it's pretty damn embarrassing. But the thing is, even with all the $33 million USD fiasco, which is something one can easily Google up themselves, it seems that people are wanting things from 15. Which is like, they're ignoring the whole fiasco from that. So, you look at Final Fantasy 9, Final Fantasy 15, you seem to have some of the favorites going a bit more often. Now, you look at Final Fantasy 4, it's kind of the same thing because you had 2 years straight where Kane got an early rework coming to global. Now, as a result of hold on a second. Now, as a result of Noctis's EX Weapon getting realized early, it got to the point where, as a result of that, and this is again because of RNA's global debut being early, Dark Knight Cecil got his EX realization early. And on top of that, Dark Knight Cecil got the character enhancement boards before he was supposed to. Now, the biggest problem with playing favorites, it's kind of a big one despite it being legal. Now, I personally prefer favoritism as something that is questionably illegal, because when people play favorites more often than not, and this game is kind of known for doing that, despite what people think, is that it turns people away in the long term, because it's like, if you're playing favorites more than not, and I don't mean in the in-game, but things coming out for certain people, like earlier, more often, it's like, if you're using somebody from 9, like getting something early, although here in this case, Vivi getting his LD first was the justifiable one, and then you have things from people from 4 or 15 being top dogs, getting something early. Or in this case right now, Balthier getting his LD because he's the quote-unquote, he's the leading man. It's like, it's going to turn people away. And when it comes down to, the reason, it's legal for to play favorites, but also to be questionable in the sense of who gets what early. Because if you continue to get stuff out early for certain people more often, people are going to be like, screw DFFOO, because it's like you're playing favorites, and it's like something's got to give. And what I mean by playing favorites, just to clarify here, it's not so much though who you play in the game, who you use. It's more so, it's all of the who gets what early. Because when it comes to Final Fantasy 13, for example, the only thing they got early was Snow's Lost Chapter. Outside of that, Fang's global debut was delayed by a global first character. And there is a lot, and I mean a lot, of hate on Final Fantasy 13, despite Final Fantasy 15 being the incomplete game. And yes, those two things are common knowledge. Now, with Final Fantasy 15 and Final Fantasy Type 0, neither game would have existed if it weren't for 13. So that's a fact check that I just provided. I'm like, yeah, we know about all this stuff, but 15 and Type 0 would not have existed without 13. And 13 is a complete game in the sense of, you have 13, 13-2, Lightning Returns to the trilogy. So that's that on that. So to do a quick recap, Balthier actually has better aspects along... So do a super quick recap, Balthier actually has the longevity covered in ways better than Fang and Zack. Now, the fact that Balthier is a aspect of the favoritism where, sense of somebody getting something early, this might be the big wake-up call for Square Enix to say, the be-all. I'm like, maybe we shouldn't do certain things for certain entries this early anymore, because some people may not be liking this time around. Because if you think of the global first, in the sense of the global debuts of character events, if you look at Sephiroth and Kuja, it's like, you got certain people coming out sooner than expected, and it wasn't that great of an idea. If you look at the global first characters, you have Beatrix and Aranea, it's like, yeah. Now you have Balthier, getting the LD first, where Fang was actually a much better candidate. Now, the only thing that I could see Square Enix not giving her LD first early on global is if she's getting it with Sid Reigns. If she's not, then there's going to be some issues with some of the player base. Not me personally, because the thing is with Fang, it's like, you know what? It is what it is. The only LD I'm really excited about is Celeste. That's just me. So that I do have to get going. I have to get ready for work. So that, with that, I'm done with this video. With Wolvie here, signing off. I will catch you all on the flip side.